Okay, I am going to go over problem, what is this here, 21-6. It covers contribution margin, break-even sales, a cost volume profit chart, also known as a break-even chart, margin of safety, and operating leverage. The setup is that Bell Main Company expects to maintain the same inventories at the end and the beginning of the year. Production cost is therefore assumed to be equal to cost of goods sold. With this in mind, various department heads were asked to submit estimates of the cost for their departments during the year, and then a summary is as follows. All the important stuff for you is given right up here. I typed it into Excel so we can see it in one place. We have production cost and direct materials, direct labor, factory overhead. We have our selling expenses and a breakdown, administrative expenses and a breakdown, and total. This column right here is the amount of estimated fixed costs for each of these areas with the total fixed cost. This is the estimated variable cost per unit over here. So each unit has a total of $96 in variable cost. It is, expected that we will sell 12,000 units, and each of those units will be sold at $240 a unit. Our maximum sales within the relevant range are 18,000 units. Okay. So the very first thing we're going to do is an estimated income statement. I've set up a little area here for us to do that in. An estimated income statement is no different than any other income statement. It's just that it's based on estimated numbers. So we're going to start out with sales. Okay. Over here it says sales are expected to be 12,000 units, and we're going to sell each of those units for $240. So I'm going to come over here. And you don't have to use Excel, but since I'm using it, I'm going to go ahead and take advantage of its math abilities here. So 12,000 units times 240. Okay, I'm going to have just short of 3 million in sales. Next, I need to calculate my cost of goods sold. Okay, and that is going to be made up of direct materials, direct labor, and factory overhead. Sorry, being a poor typist. Direct materials, direct labor, factory overhead. Okay. And I'm going to indent these slightly so it has a nicer format. Where'd my little indent thing go? Here we go. Okay. Now, we're going to calculate direct materials. Okay. If this whole thing is to be done under the assumption of selling 12,000 units. Just like the sales was 12,000 times the sales price, this is going to be 12,000 times the direct material cost of $50 right there. So we're going to have that amount. Let me make these columns also have some commas here. Hold on one second. Okay, be easier to read. So that's 12,000 times the 50, it gives us our direct material portion. Direct labor, okay, that's going to be 12,000. Oops, I put a negative sign. Equals 12,000 times $30. Okay, there's my overhead. Excuse me, now I'm on overhead. Okay, factory overhead now. It has a fixed portion and a variable portion. So we're going to take care of both of those. So I'm going to say this equals the 350,000 plus 12,000 times our variable portion of $6. Okay, there we go. If I were going to pull up a calculator, let me show you that one more time. Okay, let's see. The variable portion was 6. That times 12,000 equals that. To that number now, I'm going to add the fixed amount of 350,000. And you can see I got the number right there. Okay. Now, we're going to take those numbers, add them up, and we can get our cost of goods sold. Okay. Oh. I don't need the colon right there. And I'm going to indent this one a little bit. Okay. So this number right here is simply the sum. You can use our sum button here. The sum of those three numbers. There's my cost of goods sold. It's working great so far. Okay, so I have sales. Now if I subtract my cost of goods sold, I will get my gross profit. So the next line is gross profit. Okay. This equals this number minus that number. Okay, and I'm going to put an underscore here. And we have gross profit. So we are ready for all of our expenses. Be good if I spell it right. Okay, expenses are broken down into selling and administrative. Selling expenses. The first one is sales, salaries, and commissions. And I'm going to go ahead and put all the account titles in here first, then we'll do the calculations. Then we have advertising, travel, and miscellaneous selling expense. Okay, and let me indent those. Okay, so let's calculate our sales, salaries, and commissions. This one here also has a fixed portion and a variable portion. So this one is going to equal my fixed portion plus 12,000 times the variable portion. Okay, 388,000 is my amount for sales, salary, and commission. Advertising, okay, it is strictly a fixed portion, so that is just going to be equal to the same number over here. My travel is also fixed, so that is just $4,000. Miscellaneous selling has a fixed and variable portion, so this one equals my fixed portion plus 12,000 times the variable portion, which is just 1. Okay, so basically 12,000 plus the 12,300 is that amount. So I have all my selling expenses. Let me underline that, and I'm going to sum these numbers up. Yay. Okay, that's done. That is my total selling expenses. Let me give it a label. There we go. Okay, we're going to move on to administrative expenses. And let me get all the labels in, and then we'll do the calculations. Office and officers. Okay, let's make it all just a little bit prettier. You know, if some of this is going too slow, you can speed up the speed on YouTube. It's a beautiful thing to be able to speed up some videos. Okay, so office and officer salary. Let's start up here. Okay, this right here is a flat amount that is fixed, so that equals $325,000. Supplies has fixed and variable, so it equals $6,000 plus 12,000 times the variable portion. Okay, the miscellaneous, fixed and variable, so that equals that. Oops, plus 12,000. And again, this is actually just times 1, so it's the same as just 12,000. Okay, we got all those in place. We're going to get a sum of these numbers. Okay, now I have my total selling and administrative expenses. I'm going to add those up and get my total expenses. First, though, I do need a label here. Total administrative expenses. Words are getting shorter. Let's see. Okay, this is going to equal the two broad categories here, that plus that. Okay, we're getting there. Our income statement is nearly done at this point. We have gross profit, and we now have our total expenses. All we need to do to get our income from operations at this point is a calculation. So our next number is going to be income from operations. Okay, and that equals gross profit minus expenses. And there we go. That is income from operations. Very nice. And I'm going to put a double underscore on that because it's the final number we're looking for. There we go. And I'm just going to clear out some of these multiple lines here because simply they disturb me. Okay, that looks good. We have our estimated income statement. Now, after that, let me give it a time mark, 11. Okay, next, what is the expected contribution margin ratio? Okay, I've set this up over here. Expected contribution margin ratio is sales minus variable cost divided by sales. Let me go ahead and just copy this right here. And let's put it on the next page so we can look at it at the same time. Okay, make these a little bigger. I promise it'll be worth it in a second. Okay, that should work. So we have, as we said, we got sales minus variable cost divided by sales. So let's come over here, sales, we're just picking from right there. So let's see, this equals that, okay, minus our variable cost. And what are our variable costs? Okay, let's see, minus, we're selling $12,000. And the variable cost per unit is $96 a piece. Okay, we can't see that right now. I'll show it to you in just a minute. But that's the top part right there. And then the sales again is that number. Okay, so we're saying it's that number, divided by that number. I've tried to leave it in a fraction formula. It's not looking real pretty. But let me go ahead and say that it equals that divided by that is 1. And I don't think that's right. Oh, it's because it's formatting this wrong. We need to make this a percent. Okay, let me pause and I'll format it. Okay, 60% bottom line is the answer there. Once I formatted it to show that it was a percent, that's this number divided by this number. So again, sales minus variable cost divided by sales is the expected contribution margin ratio, and there it is, 60%. So the next one is determine the break-even sales in units and in dollars. So this is two separate calculations. One is for units, one is for dollars. So we have fixed cost is the top part right here. So our fixed cost, let me come over here and we'll pick those up, is actually this number right here. Okay, and by the way, this was the 96 that we said was the variable cost. I referred to that just a moment ago. Here is the fixed cost. Okay, so this equals, and I'm going to go over here and just pull it from here, that number. Okay, that's my fixed cost. And I want to divide it by the unit contribution margin. Now, we have not talked about the unit contribution margin yet, but let's come over here and figure out what it is. Okay, the unit contribution margin is simply the selling price minus, oops, I didn't mean to put a plus there, it equals, okay, the sales price of $240 a unit minus the variable cost. So our unit contribution margin for this particular item is $144. For each item that we sell at $240, $144 of that will go towards covering our fixed cost. Okay, so that is the unit contribution margin, 144. So again, I'm attempting to make this look like a fraction. Okay, so let's do the calculation. We want to say it's this divided by this. Unit the break-even point in units is $8,000. You know, that's the answer that we're looking for there. Let me highlight the answer here. That's the actual answer. Okay, that's in units. Okay, let me make this a different color. Be peachy. Okay, so now we're going to do it again in dollars. It's a pretty blue. Okay, so now in dollars, we're going to take those same fixed costs. It's the same thing as this number right here. Okay, and we're now going to divide those by the contribution margin ratio. Okay, we just calculated the ratio right up here. So this is the same as 60% or 0.6. Okay, so now when we do our nice little division here, this equals that divided by that. Okay, and poof, there's our answer. Okay, it doesn't have a comma in it, but let's put some commas in it. There we go. 1,920,000 is the break even in dollars. Okay. Now over here, the very next thing it asks for is the expected excuse me, no it's not. The next thing it asks for is the estimated income statement. But we're going to go back to that. I'm going to go ahead and finish this out and then go back to the cost volume profit chart. So the next one, what is the expected margin of safety in dollars and as percent of sales? So this right here is the expected sales minus the break-even point. Okay, sales at break-even point. That's our margin of safety right there. So what is our expected sales? That is this number right here. Okay. Now what are our sales at our break-even point? That minus sales in dollars right here. Okay, $960,000 is the amount of our expected margin of safety expressed in dollars. Okay. Okay, let me just highlight that right here so you know it's one of our answers. Just so much on here, I want to make sure it's clear. Okay, as a percent of sales, we're going to calculate now sales minus sales at break-even point. Notice that's the same number we have right here. Then we're going to divide it by sales. So this equals this number here divided by sales. Okay, this is a percent of sales. It's given it to us in decimal form. If we change it to a percent, we can see it's 33, and on this one, you know, we probably ought to make sure you realize there are repeating threes after here. It's 33 1/3%. Okay. Next is contribution margin. Excuse me, no, it's not. It's operating leverage. That is the contribution margin divided by the income from operations. Okay. Our contribution margin can be calculated by taking the 12,000 that we expect to sell and multiplying it times that unit contribution margin that we just talked about. Remember, that was 144. Okay, let me come back here and show you where I got that again. That's the same 144. That was the sales price minus the variable amount. That's our unit contribution margin. Okay, so again, 12,000 times the contribution margin per unit is the top part of this fraction right here. And we are going to divide that by our income from operations. Okay, so this equals income from operations right there. And let's do the actual math here. Okay, so this equals contribution margin divided by income from operations. And that is not right. Hold on one second. Okay, mystery solved. Some of you may have noticed, I didn't, that when I copied the estimated income statement from here over to here, it didn't paste in right. So I had the wrong number here, and some of these were wrong as well. But anyway, so now that I have the correct numbers that I've copied over, this does indeed equal this amount divided by the income from operations, and we now know that our operating leverage is 3. Okay, so we've done everything now but the break-even chart. So let's come over here and quickly see if we can do this break-even chart. Let me get my sheet. Okay, to do a break-even chart, we need 2 separate lines. And if you've had microeconomics, you may already have some experience with this. Anyway, 2 lines. One is going to be a sales line and one is going to be a cost line. So you have to ask yourself, let's do sales first. If you sell absolutely nothing, what are the amount of your sales going to be? And these all actually need to be up at the top. Hold on here. That's better. Okay, your sales would be 0. So we need to have a just a point right here. Our sales would be 0 right here. Okay. Now, if we sell the maximum amount within this relevant range, let's come over here and just do some calculations. Remember, the relevant range was 18,000. So 18,000 times the 240 sales price. The maximum sales that we have is this right here. Was it 4.32 million? So at 18, here's our line for 18. Somewhere right under here, we're going to drop another symbol. Okay, let me get my shape back up here. 18, and this is not going to be perfect. One of the things that's nice in economics is the program will allow you to make those nice, clean little snaps. Okay, so now we have our two dots. Let's draw a line that will now represent our sales. Okay, let me see if I can nicely connect this to that. Yay. Okay, that is our sales line. And let me see. I can just attempt to write sales. Let's see if that's neat enough here. That's sales right there. Okay. And then the next line is going to be based on cost. If we sell absolutely nothing, what is the amount of cost that we will have? Well, it's going to be the same thing as our fixed cost. So if we come over here, we can remember that our total fixed cost, if we sell nothing, is $1,152,000. So a little bit over the 1 mark right here is going to be where our fixed costs start. So let me insert a nice little dot here. And again, not perfect, but it'll work. Okay, there's a dot for the beginning amount. Now, if we sell the maximum amount, then that means we would be selling the 18,000, and we're going to multiply that 18,000 times the variable cost, which is $96 a piece. Okay, that's the variable portion, but to that amount, let me go ahead and put brackets around that. We have to add the fixed portion, and that fixed portion was, let me come over here and look at it again. Should have copied it. This number right here. Oh, I made it mad when I went over there. Okay, let's go back over here. Didn't mean to do that. Hold on, let me just type it in here. 1152 and 3 zeros. Okay, so that is going to be our cost. It's just short of 3 million. So now I'm going to find my dot again, and just under 3 million at the 18 point, I'm going to draw my next dot right there. Okay, now I'm going to connect them with a line, and then we'll see how far off we are. Okay, starting there. Going to there. Okay. Doing it by hand, which is, essentially what I've done there. They kept the line straight, but it's by hand. We are off slightly, but we already know that our break-even point is 8,000 units because, we already calculated another way. So, truth be told, at this point, you don't have to do a break-even chart to actually complete this problem, but it does show you, if this was precise, this would be where our break-even point is. And, again, in microeconomics, it has that nice little thing where you can snap those in line. It'll have dotted lines here showing you break-even is 8,000, and then it gives you, it'll have dots coming over here to the exact amount of break-even in sales. But again, we've already calculated that. Here's the 8,000. The break-even in sales is just short of 2 million, and you can see that line would be just short of 2 million. So we're not too far off of that. So I think that we've done everything. Let me just double check here. We have the income statement. Again, right here. We have the other information asked for, the expected contribution margin ratio. Here's our break-even in units and in dollars. Here is our break-even chart. And then coming back over to here, we've finished out the rest of it, expected margin of safety in dollars and as a percent of sales and operating leverage. So we have done everything we need to for problem 21. Let me know if you need any further help. Thanks.